What's up guys, Perry from Rockville here, and today we're going to be going over the controls, inputs, and outputs for the M25 MIDI keyboard. So now let's take a look at some of the controls, inputs, and outputs for the controller. So starting on the back here, we have the on and off button to turn on or turn off the keyboard. We have the 3.5mm MIDI output, so we can send MIDI from our controller out to a piece of hardware like another synth. Then we have the Type-C port where we can plug in the included USB cable to charge the keyboard or to set it up to our computer. And then we have the sustain pedal input, so we can set up a sustain pedal to the keyboard. Now moving on to the top here where we have all of our controls, starting with the thumbstick here. This is what we can use to shift the pitch or the modulation of whatever instrument we're playing. So for example, I can play a note right here. If I want to shift the pitch up, I can move it to the right. There we go, pitches it up, then back to the middle. And I can shift the pitch down by moving it to the opposite direction. Down. And then we can move the stick up and down to change the modulation. Underneath we have the arpeggiator, so we can arpeggiate the chords that we're playing. So for example, I can turn it on, and now if I play a chord, you hear the arpeggio start to go. Then we have the tap tempo where we can change the speed of the arpeggio. So if I were to play that chord again, and then use the tap tempo, see, it starts to become faster. If you ever want to turn the tap tempo off, you just have to hold it down until the light disappears. What's also cool is that we can use these knobs over here on the other side to manipulate the arpeggio. To do this, we'll want to hold down the arpeggio button, and then from here we can use the knobs to adjust the arpeggio. So we can use this first knob here to adjust the division of the arpeggio. So for example, I can change it anywhere from 1/8 to a 1/16 triplet and have it sound something like this. We also have a swing feature to change the swing of the arpeggio. So we can either give it no swing and make it sound like this, or we can dial it to about 75%, let's say, and give it this amount of swing. We can also use the mode knob to adjust how the arpeggio will be played back. We have a few different settings for this. So we have the up setting where the notes will go from lowest to highest. We have the down setting where it will start high and then go low. Then we have exclusive, inclusive, order, or random, so you can go ahead and experiment with any of these. Next, we have the octave knob to adjust the octave of the arpeggio. So for example, I can set it to octave 4, and now when I play the arpeggio, you're hearing it go through all of the different octaves. Then we have the latch knob, which is really cool because if we set this to on, we can play the arpeggio and let go, and then it will continue going. Next, we have the sync knob where we can set whether we want this sync to be internal or external. You'd only want to use external if you're using another device to set the arpeggio or tempo. And then we have the plus and minus buttons to change the speed of the arpeggio. So I'm going to play the chord again. And now I can use this knob to speed it up. See, it's getting faster. And I can slow it down. You hear it slowing. Now remember, in case the knobs aren't working with the arpeggio, you have to hold down the arpeggio button and then you can use the knobs to adjust the arpeggio. Underneath the arpeggiator, we have the octave buttons, so we can change the octave of the instrument. So for example, we're set in this octave right now, and then I can bring the octave lower, see, or I can bring it up higher. Underneath, we have the transpose buttons to switch the key of the notes. So for example, if I'm playing this chord, sounds completely normal, sounds standard, but I can press transpose up And then you can hear that the note has shifted a half step. And then I can keep going, whole step, half, etc. Then we can go the opposite direction and transpose down. So again, this is standard, press transpose down, then went down a half step, and then down whole, and so on. These are also touch sensitive, which means if I press it soft, it's gonna be a very low velocity, soft note. But if I play it harder, get high velocity, louder note. Then we have the full level button, which will play the notes of our drum pad at full velocity. So for example, I can press the button here, and now this way, no matter how soft I play, the note's gonna come out at full velocity. Cool, so now moving on, we have the drum pads in the middle. We can use this to trigger our drum sounds or other samples depending on the instrument we have set up here. So for example, if I press them right now, you're gonna hear the keyboard, but that's just because I have the keyboard set up on our track here. Next, we have the display right in the middle. This is gonna tell us the battery life of the keyboard, our programs and our settings, the BPM, etc. Next, we have the loop button, so we can make a loop track based on the notes we're playing. So for example, I'm gonna hold down the loop button, then I'm gonna play something, and then it plays back. And then whenever you want it to stop, you're just gonna press the loop button again. Next, we have the note repeat button, which works with our drum pads here. So if we press this button and hold down a note, you'll hear the note start to repeat. We can also use the division, swing, and plus and minus knobs to adjust the playback of the note repeat. Just like with the arpeggiator, we have to hold down the note repeat button in order to use these knobs. So for example, I can hold down note repeat and switch the division to 1/16 triplet. And now if I hold down the note, you'll hear it in that triplet. We can do the same thing with the swing, so I can hold down note repeat and bring the swing up to about 65%. There you go. And then I can adjust the BPM of the note repeat by holding down the note repeat button. And then I'm going to increase the speed. And now if I play it, you'll hear it faster. Next, we have the bank A, B button to switch between the different banks for our drum pads. So in bank A, you got these notes. Then in bank B, you have these notes. Next, we have the controller setting button to configure these knobs up here to a specific MIDI CC message. We're gonna go more in depth with this later on, but if we hold down the controller setting button and raise knob number 1 here, we're gonna be changing the MIDI CC message. Then we have the drum setting button where we can configure the drum pads here to a specific MIDI note message. Again, we'll go more in depth with this later, but if you hold this button down, you'll see all of the drum pads start to light up. Then to change the note, you're actually gonna use these knobs here, and you're gonna use the corresponding knob that matches with the pad. So for example, if you're trying to edit pad 1, you're gonna use knob 1 over here. So we can use them to adjust the arpeggiator, we can use them to adjust the note repeat, and we can even assign these knobs to specific functions inside of our DAW, but we're gonna be going over that later on. So hopefully this helped break down all of the controls, inputs, and outputs for the M25. But of course, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to reach out to our customer support team through phone or email. As always, I'm Perry from Rockville, and we'll see you guys next time.